Welcome everyone to Spirit Coffee Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ginette Byro, and together with Elyse Catherine and Lisa Richmond, we are some of the mediums and channelers at Avalon Spirit. And ooh, we meet every Friday to talk about all things spirit, from the highs and the lows, the light and the dark. And being that we are right in the beginning of January, it is a very interesting time to really sit with yourself and acknowledge your feels. Like, how are you really feeling? Because, I mean, if you think about it, we have gone through so much in the last 5 years, from 2020 until now, has been hugely transformative. We've had that 100 years of growth and 100 years of growth in that 4 years of 2020 to 2024. And I think sometimes we can feel like we're trying to keep up to the path of love and light without acknowledging the true human feels of what it's like to be in the phase of that massive transformation. And so here we are stepping into 2025. It's a big astrological year. However, there's like a lot of fatigue and energetic fatigue, and maybe even spiritual faith and trust fatigue, or whatever it might be. And there's a lot of ways that we all experience it. Some aren't, some are just riding that wave and like riding it with perfection. Maybe not perfection, but just riding it with grace. Others are feeling the depths of it. And we really wanted to talk about how wherever you are today in the now is completely okay. So, with all that being said, welcome, ladies. How are we feeling?
I have a mug
Yeah,
that says
all of this.
crikey.
Crikey.
Yeah, and I think it's important to acknowledge that just because, you put a lot of effort and faith into, your spiritual practice and, being human is where we're at. And that comes with a lot of ups and downs. That comes with the grace and the beauty of experiencing things in the 3D world, our senses and relationships, which is just such a gift. But it also comes with very human things. Like in the Northern Hemisphere, the month of January can often, and February really, can often bring a lot of that kind of hyperpolarization after the high of December, right? And you kind of dip down and it can be a mixed bag, right? And so just acknowledge that, we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater when we're feeling really low. We can just, take it one day at a time, and we can really tune in and say, what do I need today? Physically, emotionally, spiritually, instead of having all of these like big New Year's resolutions and expectations of self that, now I'm going to just transform myself into the best way according to XYZ that shows up, and really actually take more time and patience with yourself, because January and February are actually deep months of like hibernation and going into yourself and really feeling the feels without feeling left so dry. And I mean, that can really happen after like holiday season. So
Mhm.
really taking the time to have compassion for yourself right now. If you're feeling it, if you're feeling energized and like ready to go and like let's do this, then amazing. Then trust that. Right? But going inside and saying, what do I actually need versus your perception of what maybe the outside world is telling you or what you think you should. It's building that trust with yourself on what you need day by day, hour by hour, maybe. And know that like these 2 months can be really tricky for that kind of stuff on a very human level, but also many other, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been feeling a real pull, like normally around my birthday, which I didn't really practice that this year just because of everything that happened with my partner and having a stroke like 2 days before. Um, so my like reflection of my birth year practice kind of got put to the wayside. And then I was like, okay, I am a person like I like a new journal and a pen and sitting down and reflecting on the year and setting intentions. I've never been like a resolution, but intentions and maybe some goals. What would I like to see for the year? And I set some energetic intentions for myself to hold, but when I was sitting with what do I want to like see happen or what do I want to call in? Because there was a big energy too with the new moon on the 30th of like setting the stage for the energetics of what you want. And that's great if that really resonated with you. And I did a little bit of that. But when I was actually sitting down with a lot of it, there was a real call, and I saw some folks online, in the spiritual world speaking to this of, this isn't, when we return to nature and the rhythms of nature, this is not the new year. This is the deep, dark, cold months where, like you were saying, Lisa, we are sitting inwards with ourselves. It's not the time energetically within our bodies, within nature, to be like new and this and da, 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 da. And that can be, if that's energizing for you, cool, great. Like, roll with that. I posted something this morning before we were talking about this, that like, you get to choose when you want to evolve and grow and recreate yourself at any point. Like, even with nature, if you're like, nah, winter's my jam, amazing, roll with that. But if summer is, or spring or fall, however that manifests for you is amazing. But like you were saying, Lisa, letting go of what the rules are, what the it's New Year's, new you. Da, 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 da. For me, there's been a real call towards like, yeah, maybe I want to so here's what it is. They're saying the things that I wanted to shift, or like the intentions that I was setting, or the little pieces of quote unquote change that I were called forward in myself over New Year's, were actually to set me up for spring, like astrological New Year's. So maybe that's something, if you're feeling like, oh, I don't feel that energized feeling of new, I don't feel excited, I don't feel,
Yeah.
that's fine. Maybe tap into like, okay, what would feel good for the next 3 months? What would feel good? Because I think that's astrological.
Yeah, April 1st, right?
April 1st,
January,
yeah.
February, March.
Yeah. So the next 3 months, what would feel good for the next 3 months? What would feel good to nurture myself through the darkest of the winter months? And for a lot of us, the coldest of the winter months, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, up in the Arctic tundra where we live. So, and I feel like, and maybe these are just my algorithms because this is what I'm feeling called towards, but I am really seeing a shift, even in the spiritual world, around shifting away from the calendar of it all and returning to nature and returning to those rhythms and returning to a different pace. But even that can feel uncomfortable in change because it's shaking up your normal things that you like to do, or rituals or traditions that you have around this time. This holiday season felt backwards for me with traditions. Bless you.
Sorry.
Okay. It felt backwards for me. It felt like turned on its head, and not necessarily in a bad way, but just, it was very kind of disorienting. Like, this feels very different than in years past.
I think a great way to honor the energy, no matter where you are, but let's just say, especially for this time right now, January, and all the pressures, like you said, of the new year, new you, is to focus on how you want to feel. And if you place your intention on how you want to feel at any given time, then you can honor that, and then you can like regulate your own energy if you focus on how you want to feel. Yeah. Like, so say you wake up and you're feeling really off, you're feeling really frustrated. How do you want to feel? Okay, well, I want to feel peaceful. So what do I need to do today? Or what do I need to read or focus on or whatever to bring that feeling to me? Because then we're still focusing on our own co-creative ability, right? Like creating our reality based on what we do, based on what we think. And then we can still focus on it, because then we don't feel like we're being carried away by this wave or like crushed by this wave. And Spirit showed me just the other day, actually, this huge, when was it? Was it yesterday? This, again, another like door of energy opening from the higher ups flooding the planet. So like this other planetary wave kind of energy. And I just find that interesting, because I think it's like the only thing we can control, regardless of the astrology, regardless of other people, regardless of health or whatever, like I've had to try and surrender to this, is how do I want to feel in this moment? And then what can I do to bring that to this moment? And I feel like, and again, I'm working on this, so I'm learning this, if this is truly true. But I feel like that is our one safe space that we can control for sure. Is like if I don't like the feel, how can I change it to what I want to feel? And we get to choose that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
And
that's
I'll,
my like safety rope or safety net.
yeah. And I'll take that a step further to say, can you drop into your body and ask that? Because I feel like it doesn't mean like, how do I want my body to feel necessarily, but it's like rather than in the mind, asking the question to your whole self. Because I think, to your point, like we're tired. People have been working so hard, and there's been so much call forward to evolution and growth and shadow work and health and all these things in the world and all the things that are happening and like there is a level of fatigue that's going to come with that. And when like are we our best selves when we're exhausted because we didn't have a good night's sleep or we've had a super stressful week, and then we check in with our mind and say like, what would you like? It's going to be like, F all of it, or maybe it's going to say like, go to your numbing mechanisms or snap at somebody because you need to like, bleh, right? So sometimes the mind can have some maladaptive offerings for what you might need in that moment. So if you can, just like taking a few breaths, maybe like shake your body out, like yawn or make noise or flop around on the floor or whatever, starfish on the floor, like Ginette likes to do.
Yeah.
But drop into the body and then ask that question again, not to say like, what does your body necessarily need, but just like from a more embodied place with your mind, your body, and your spirit all together, what might you need right now? Um,
And I also think too, I was really pondering it this morning actually, because over the holidays there was so much going on. We got sick and it just was a lot, right? Like too much. And so I found myself scrolling social media, especially TikTok, because number one, it was a bit of an escapism, right? Because it was taking me out of my body, which felt like garbage. But then I was also getting intrigued on different storylines. And so it was this weird duality of like learning things and then also garbage that like I didn't want to see or wasn't interesting to me or whatever. And the last video that like nailed it home for me that I was like, got it, was this woman who was going on this rant about being a mom, being so busy. She's like, how are we supposed to in a day? And I'm using this mom example, but anybody can apply this to their lives and then add spirituality on top of it and like, oh my goodness. But how are we supposed to go to work all day, come home, run the kids around, make an amazing meal, pre-cook meals so kids have good lunches, have time to exercise, have time for mindfulness, have like she listed all of the things that it's like, well, how can you actually sustain that in a day? Right? She's like, it's unrealistic the speed at which we are expected to move through this world. And I think we've all adapted things like that in our world unless we're super conscious of it, right? I know I totally have. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so true. And so for me, I was like, I really want to get back into feel. And so it's about, for me, it's like creating this clean slate of the stuff that keeps me distracted, right? Like, even like, I don't even know how to give an example of it. Like even numbing out sometimes and watching Nailed It on Netflix, which is hilarious. If you haven't seen it, it's so funny. And it's not that that's a bad thing, but it's like after you've done that for a while and you've noticed it, it's like, okay, what do you then want to feel?
mhm.
And so I find that I'm kind of right now sitting in a spot of like, okay, what do I actually want to do in these moments that are actually going to enrich me a little bit? And maybe that's because I've spent some time in the numb out phase and I'm like, okay, ready to do something different, right? But it's honoring the phase in which you're feeling. And
Mhm.
I think there's such a good thing of scrapping what everybody or anybody is saying about anything sometimes, like spirituality, politics, health and wellness. Throw it all out the window sometimes, like full on clean slate, and then ask yourself what you want.
Mhm.
I think there's something freeing about that. I think there's
Yeah.
like this like moment of clean slate. I'm being shown in my head in the Avalon deck that we have, not the Avalon Spirit one, but the old Avalon deck
Mm.
of the cleaning house one, the frog, I think
Mm,
it is, where it's like
mhm,
cleaning a house. I think there's something about that that's really in the air right now.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree because it's like another layer of sometimes when you ask yourself, like sometimes the numbing out is what you need.
Hmm.
And there's a level of like, oh, these watching Netflix or being on TikTok or doing this is bad. Like you shouldn't do that. You should, and that's not it at all. It's that when we never ask ourselves and never return to the question of like, how do I want to feel now? And how do I want to feel now? Sometimes that like I slothed on the couch more than I've ever slothed in my life this last week. Like, and that is what I needed. It was not productive. It was
Hmm.
not wellness and spiritual folk. It was like laying on the couch, watching a TikTok, moving to the chair, watching TV, like reading a book, having a nap, like cycle, 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 because that's what I needed. So it's not to say I completely agree that the numbing out, um, sometimes that's what our nervous system needs to just like take a pause and we can't access what actually is going to be supportive for us until we like hit the pause button for a bit.
Hmm. I agree. Mm. How about you, Lisa?
No, yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. All right. Well, any other thoughts? Any other shares?
I also just want to acknowledge people were really sick this holidays.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
oh my gosh, people's
Everywhere.
colds and flus and things like it just, so if that was you, I hope you were able to um support yourself and rest because the holidays can also be super busy and like
Hmm.
it cannot be a restful period too for some. So yeah, sending you love and because you want to just be able to like be cozy and chill and that can be a whole nother level of like challenge and frustration when you're like, oh, I can't wait for the holidays and then and super sick. That can be
Yeah.
tough to navigate. So
Yeah. All right. Okay, everyone. Well, no matter how you're feeling this month, today, in this moment, just know that we feel you. We get it. We're all there, different phases, different days, different times, right? It's completely okay to feel exactly as you feel and to honor that. Because if you honor that, then you'll find you again. And that's what really matters. So, with that, we hope that the beginning of January does become a positive for you or is a positive. If you're already riding that wave, then love it. Keep riding it. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week. So have a beautiful rest of your day and we'll see you then.